Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. The United States Secretary of State and the UN Secretary General in Port of Spain for CARICOM's 50th anniversary. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 4th July 2023. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. The United States Secretary of State is in Port of Spain. He's there to participate in CARICOM Heads of Government meeting and anniversary celebrations. The United Nations Secretary General is also in town for the occasion. The US government seems prepared for the possibility of talks on a request by Trinidad and Tobago's government to amend the Dragon Gas Deal license. Jewel Brown of TV6 News has more.
During a special briefing via teleconference on Friday, the U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Caribbean Affairs and Haiti, Barbara Feinstein, fielded the question about Trinidad and Tobago's Dragon Gas deal with Venezuela as she spoke in detail about the State Department's announcement that U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will visit Trinidad and Tobago on Wednesday, July 5th, where he is to participate in the Caribbean Community CARICOM Heads of Government meeting and CARICOM's 50th anniversary celebrations. During the briefing, a transcript of which was posted on the State Department's website, the U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State confirmed that on July 5th, in Port of Spain, Secretary Blinken will meet with Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. A question was posed during the briefing with regard to Trinidad and Tobago's request to the U.S. government for an amendment of the terms of a U.S. Treasury Department Office of Foreign Assets Control provisional 2-year license authorizing the joint development of a promising offshore gas field in Venezuela with regard to the Dragon natural gas field in Venezuela's waters. A journalist asked if this is expected to be raised at Secretary Blinken's meetings during his visit to Trinidad and Tobago, what changes were requested, and if this is something the U.S. is open to. The Deputy Assistant Secretary of State referred to the U.S. specific license to the government of Trinidad and Tobago to allow development of the Dragon offshore natural gas field and said that step was taken, quote, to support the government of Trinidad and Tobago's ability to access additional natural gas resources and utilize existing onshore infrastructure to meet domestic demand and to increase regional and global exports of LNG, ammonia, urea, and other gas-derived products, particularly in light of our commitment to assist the Caribbean region with access to additional energy supplies, and to that end, as a regional leader in LNG production, Trinidad and Tobago has committed to providing solutions to the region as it seeks to boost its production capacity. So we are certainly open to further conversations with Trinidad and Tobago on the issue to see what can be done to improve energy security in the region, unquote. The State Department said on Friday that building on U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris's historic June 8th visit to the Bahamas, hosted the U.S. Caribbean leaders meeting, Secretary Blinken will engage on pressing issues in the region with the heads of government, including Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and incoming CARICOM Chair and Dominica Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. The State Department said that on July 6th, Secretary Blinken will travel to Georgetown, Guyana, to meet with Guyana's President, Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, Guyana's Foreign Minister, and key members of President Ali's cabinet. Additionally, the United Nations announced on Friday that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres will be traveling to Port of Spain on Sunday and will address the CARICOM conference on Monday, and that he will also meet with Prime Minister Rowley and other leaders on the margins of the conference. Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
Still in Port of Spain, Archbishop Jason Gordon, concerned about international pressure on sex education in schools, One religious leader is monitoring the upward trend for inclusion of the LGBTQ plus content in schools. CNC3's Jesse Ramdeo tells us more.
The US and the United Nations and others are putting pressure on CARICOM to introduce a comprehensive sex education. And you know what that means?
And listen,
this would teach your child that his or her biological sex is not a given, that each one could choose freely to identify as he or she likes.
Troubling times when the bell tolls. During a conversation surrounding education in Trinidad and Tobago, Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon zeroed in on the school curriculum. The timely topic comes on the heels of polarizing discussions stemming from rumored plans to introduce the agenda in the school system after images of books featuring LGBT plus characters surfaced on social media. Education Minister Dr. Nyangaswi Dolly has since denied any changes to the book list or the 2023-2024 academic curriculum. According to the Archbishop, the Concordat, an agreement made over half a century ago, remains an important barrier.
No book, text, or curriculum can be introduced into the denominational school without the consent of that denomination. So we might actually be very important for the government, who has been blocking this thing as they can locally. But when it starts to come with the international partners, it's going to create a really difficult space.
In pointing to the potential dangers of foreign influence, Archbishop Gordon referenced a questionnaire administered by an international organization quizzing children about their sexuality and gender identity in Barbados last October. He cautioned those in authority to be vigilant.
If somebody has a book that was used inappropriately in a classroom or introduced in a classroom, or a questionnaire that was introduced to a child that's inappropriate, please send it in.
According to the Archbishop, new technology has also led to what he described as the hidden curriculum. He added that denominational education was in peril and steps were needed to preserve it. Jesse Ramdeo, CNC3 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Unwavering support for Fitzgerald Hines in the Parliament on Friday last, even as the opposition labelled him the worst national security minister in the country's history. CNC3's Akash Samaru reports.
All the members on this side stand in full support and solidarity of our colleague, the Minister of National Security.
Strong backing from the government for a man that was today described by the opposition as
the worst Minister of National Security in Trinidad and Tobago.
But Minister Gadsby Dolly said Fitzgerald Hines is a hard-working and honourable man. And it's typical UNC rhetoric to call for his resignation, because she said the opposition knows all about a revolving door of ministers in that portfolio.
Change, Minister. Change, Minister. Change, Minister. It didn't work for you and it's not going to work for us.
And while the government today underscored that crime is being addressed from what they call the whole-of-government approach,
the whole-of-government approach, we have it under control. We liaising and we talking with each other. But everything falling down from a whole-of-government approach because of the incompetence of all of them, the whole lot of them.
But Minister Foster Cummings believes the only reason that the UNC is sticking with this motion is to deflect from the fact that people are jumping off the opposition ship.
The UNC is collapsing and has collapsed.
But the opposition said it's difficult not to hold Minister Hines accountable as
daylight robberies, home invasions, murders, gang-related activity are all now synonymous with life in Trinidad and Tobago, just as we would speak of doubles and bacon shack.
But again, the UNC was accused of fear-mongering and putting this country at a disadvantage by continuously painting it in a bad light on the international stage.
They lack patriotism, they lack direction, they lack foresight, they lack ideas.
This no-confidence motion was piloted in April and has been going on for 3 consecutive private members' days. Akash Samaru, CNC3 News.
The laws must be upheld in accordance with the Constitution, and this is according to the Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn. Javin McLean of CVM Live has more.
The Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn, was strident in her address recently at Mandeville's Retroactive Club President's Dinner, highlighting the importance of the responsibilities attached to law enforcement agencies. Llewellyn noted the ethical practices must be upheld in accordance to the Constitution, and by this, persons serving in these capacities will maintain a level of credibility.
If you are to maintain your credibility and that trust between yourself and the public that you serve, that you, in the appropriate case, have no problem with being transparent, and you have no problem in the appropriate case in explaining, even if the public, the court of public opinion, may not agree, but you are prepared.
She further adds that leaders in these public bodies must be cognizant of the decisions made that will adversely affect the reputation or the liberty of the citizen.
One must be wary of making utterances or having this inscrutable silence or operating in a way that may unwittingly give elements of the public the perception that there may be an unconscious bias.
This, she notes, transparency is key. She sought to provide some clarity on the process of being indicted.
Must be an awareness that you cannot indict on perceptions or suspicion. So in other words, there must be an evidential basis to make an adverse decision, whether at the administrative level or at the criminal level.
The DPP further indicated the laws on the books are governed by the Constitution. She notes her office is always in alignment with decisions made after a thorough process of investigation. Javin McLean, CVM Live.
The government of St. Kitts and Nevis offers sincere condolences to the family and loved ones on the passing of the former Governor-General, His Excellency Sir Samuel Weymouth Tapley Seaton. A government press release recently issued said that the passing of the former Governor-General is indeed a great loss, not only to the family and loved ones, but to the entire nation. Andre Huey of SKN Newsline provides some details.
Sir Tapley had a long and distinguished career of service to his country and fellow citizens and residents. He was the fourth Governor-General of St. Kitts and Nevis from 2015 to 2023. He served as noted attorney for many years, as a Crown Counsel in the Attorney General's Chambers, and acting High Court Registrar between 1975 and 1980, and as the St. Kitts and Nevis Attorney General from 1980 to 1995. He was appointed Queen's Counsel in 1988 and a Knight Grand Cross of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, GCMG, on the 9th of November 2015. He also had the distinction of being named Commander of the Royal Victorian Order, CVO, in 1985. Sir Tapley Seaton is credited as being one of the architects of the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis. His achievements consist of a keen acumen for legislative drafting, including the Income Tax Amendments for St. Lucia, the 2001 Securities Act, Aliens Landholding Regulation Acts in 9 ECCU member territories, the National Trust Bill for St. Kitts and Nevis, and the Clarence Fitzroy Brand College Bill, and the drafting of the Small and Medium Enterprises SME Bill, which eventually became the Small Business Development Act, number 24 of 2009. In addition to his civic duties, Sir Tapley served his country as a member of various boards, national committees, and organizations in numerous capacities, including Director of the St. Kitts Sugar Manufacturing Corporation, SSMC, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and the Frigate Bay Development Corporation. He was President of the St. Christopher Heritage Trust, now called the St. Christopher National Trust, the St. Kitts and Nevis Bar Association, and the OECS Bar Association. Vice President of the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society, and the St. Christopher National Trust, and Chairman of Cable and Wireless, formerly Scantel. The Governor of St. Kitts and Nevis said it is indeed grateful for his unwavering commitment to nation building over the years. They said he has positively impacted the lives of many throughout his career and will be deeply missed. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.